Hello, everyone. Welcome to again Meet the Coach. I'm co-host Erwin de Graaf and I'm my co-host Steve Jess as well. And today we have Leah Adams here with us to talk a little bit about what she does as coaching. Of course, we could introduce Leah, but I think she knows herself much better than we do. So, Leah, a little bit more about where you are from, what you do of coaching, and so on. So, a little introduction.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Leah Adams. I live in the United States in Georgia, North Georgia, in the mountains of North Georgia. I have been a coach for 5 years. I am a retired pharmacist, with retired being the very best part of that. Happy to not be in the pharmacy anymore, and even happier to be coaching. I love what I do. I have a life coaching certification that I obtained in 2019, but then very quickly sensed that that was not going to be my focus, and was driving down the road one day and heard this guy on the radio named Dave Ramsey um, talking about finances and financial coaching. And I thought, oh no, that's definitely not going to be it for me, because the joke has always been, as a pharmacist, all I have to do is count to 5, 10, 15, 20 to count tablets. And so it couldn't be financial coaching. Haha, the joke is on me. Turns out it was financial coaching. And I absolutely love what I do. People are in really bad shape financially these days. And I feel like I'm making a difference as I help them learn how to have peace and breathing room in their finances.
Mm.
Um, I'm married. We have two adult children, three and a half grandchildren. We've got one on the way in June. And I love to read, love to bake, and just I love to travel as well.
That's fantastic. Hey, if you would tell us a little bit more about the transition from pharmacy to coaching to no, it couldn't be me, but yes, it is financial coaching.
Well, I knew I wanted to retire from pharmacy. It's just a very difficult field these days. Insurance companies pretty much tell pharmacists what they can and cannot do. So, and it's physically very demanding. You're on your feet 12 hours minimum. I'm not as young as I used to be. And so I knew I wanted to retire, but I just didn't have a date in mind. So I began really praying about it and trying to decide when I was going to retire. And in 2019, I, I began to think about, okay, what are you going to do once you retire? Because I'm not a sit on the couch, watch Oprah kind of person. That's not me. I need to be busy. And so that's when I came across a life coaching certification. And so I did that. I did it for a little while, and then, but just realized that that was, while I felt like I was helping people, I didn't feel like it was the thing I needed to be doing. And so I began really praying about what else. And I began driving down the road to work one day at the pharmacy. I was still working at the pharmacy, and I heard Dave Ramsey on the radio talking about finances, and he mentioned financial coaching. And so I thought, oh, that couldn't be it. It just could not be it. Because as a pharmacist, all I have to do is count to 5,
Mhm.
10, 15, 20 as I'm counting tablets. And so I thought, no, no, couldn't be it. Well, it turns out that was it. And so,
What changed your mind to go
Yeah.
from no, it couldn't to yeah, I'll try it to yes, it is?
honestly, I just really began praying about, okay, God, what do you want me to do? Where do you want me to work and serve? Because I believe we all have gifts. I didn't really know mine was with numbers, but I began praying about it, and I talked to my husband about it, and he was a little shocked, just like I was. But he said, "Well, go for it, try it. Why not?" So that's kind of the transition. And I enrolled in the Ramsey Financial Master Coach Training program, and that was 2020, and here I am 5 years later.
So what's the big, so you made that change from a pharmacist to a coach. What is the big difference that you see between being a pharmacist and now being a coach? Well, what do you see the differences?
Um, I think the main difference is that I love what I do now. I didn't love being a pharmacist. Um, it, like many people, I did that because it was really good money and it helped pay the bills and it helped us get debt free, which is important. That's very important. But I didn't love it. And so I am my own boss now. I set my own hours. My husband retired in 2021. And so if we decide we want to hook up the fifth wheel camper and head to the beach or head to the mountains, I just hook up the Starlink satellite and I can coach from anywhere. And so I love the freedom, in addition to being able to really make a difference, not only in the lives of a person who is in debt or needs to save money, but we are creating generational freedom because we're changing a family tree. When
Mm.
someone learns how to manage their money, then they can teach their children and their children and their children.
So what is the biggest challenge that you see that people have nowadays in relation to money?
Debt.
That's the only thing that, or
That's not the only thing, but it is the primary thing. We have been sold this lie that debt is a necessity, and it absolutely is not a necessity. My grandparents didn't have debt. They saved money and they bought only what they could afford. And it used to be that, well, maybe you just took out a loan for a home. No, now you take out a loan for iPhones and all sorts of things. And so we just have bought into this lie that debt is a necessity, and it's not.
mm,
Other things that I think contribute are the lack of savings.
mhm.
People do not save money. Close to 70% of Americans, I don't know how it is where you live, but close to 70% of Americans could not pay for a $1,000 emergency with cash. They would have to go into debt. And so when you have no savings, when you have no rainy day fund, you're constantly on edge waiting for the shoe to drop. So debt and a lack of savings are two huge problems, two huge obstacles to financial peace.
Absolutely. Hey, one question that lots of coaches have is, yeah, my clients, they don't want to spend the money and this investment. And here you're talking about people that are in debt, have challenges with money, can't spend $1,000 on things if it was an emergency. And yet there is a way that the investment into the service of coaching is absolutely what's going to transform them. How do you work with your clients to help them see that the investment is the way through and then out?
Right. That's a great question, and it's one that many people ask me when they come to me. I can't even pay my bills. How in the world am I supposed to pay you? And so the first thing is a word that you said, Steve, is investment. I want them to understand that this is an investment into their future. Um, I also try to give them, in my consultation, I try to give them such a strong coaching experience that they they understand that A, I can help them, and B, I care about them. I care about not just their money, but about their family and how their debt is affecting them. And to be quite honest with you, for the majority of people, I've been doing financial coaching for 5 years now. For the majority of people, there are so many money leaks in their budget that there's money. to hire me. They just don't realize it. And I can show them that money pretty quickly.
So basically, in the first session, you show them where the money is so that they can pay you for the coaching sessions.
Um,
Oh,
yes, exactly, exactly. In my consultation, that's exactly what we do.
hmm,
Um, and we also talk about, okay, where are you emotionally with this?
hmm.
What it, what on a scale of 1 to 5, how are you feeling about this? What are your emotions around this? Um, what are some of your dreams? This is so important. What are your dreams? If money were no object, what are your dreams? And it's astounding the number of people that can't come up with a dream because they are so mired in debt and a lack of margin that they've never even thought about a dream. So I try to get them to dream a little bit in the consultation.
That's the question about emotion struck me as both a little surprising, but also transformational. What role do emotions play? You know, because we think numbers, we think it's black and white, or hopefully not too red. But we think that there's a real objective thing around money and numbers, and yet emotions do play a really big part. In your experience, what is the role that emotion plays around money?
It actually is huge. Dave Ramsey, one of the things he often says is um, good financial management is 20% what you know and 80% what you do. And so if I can teach people the knowledge part of it, we can work on the behavior and the heart part of it. There is great shame around money. Most people don't think about it, but how many times have you been at a dinner party and people started talking about their budget? Very rarely, because most people are in debt. They can't pay their bills or they're stretched thin. And so there's so much shame around money, and that shame creates anxiety. They live wondering if they are going to be able to stretch until the next paycheck. And many of them can't, and that's why they're living on credit cards and debt. And so anxiety, shame, depression, the emotions are huge when it comes to money.
So what would be a tip for someone that has debt, that has money problems, and you as a coach? What could you, just one simple step that they could say, that's something that I can implement right away that would, even in a small way, improve my finances?
The foundation of all of my coaching is a budget on paper, on purpose. And when I say paper, I don't necessarily mean paper. I mean maybe an app, maybe a spreadsheet. But until someone actually knows how much they have coming in and where it's all going, they have no control over their money. And so the first thing, well, one of the first things I do with every client is we get a budget on paper. It may be very rudimentary, very simple, but we get a budget on paper. Some of my first clients were a 20-something couple. And so one of the first things I had them do was create their budget. And it wasn't 2 days later, maybe, she called me in tears. She said, we had no idea we were spending almost $1,000 a month eating out. And so when you get it down in black and white, the numbers don't lie. They're not subjective. They're very objective. And if I can help someone create a budget, I think I've got them as a client at that point.
Hmm.
Something about unequivocal accountability. It's like, look, as you say, like, let's just look, like, no judgment. Just have
Right.
a look, but no judgment as you're writing down, as well as when you're looking back at it. And there's that dynamic, and I love that story. I think I saw on your website that you do stuff with couples and around marriage. Tell us a little bit more about the importance and benefit of that.
That is a great question. Most couples go into marriage not talking about money and how they're going to handle money. And, we spend tens of thousands of dollars on weddings, all these wedding gifts, showers, bachelorettes, all the things, but we never spend any time talking about money. And it's so important because you have two individuals who are in all likelihood very different. They come from very different backgrounds. They have very different ideas about debt, about saving money. And so, one of the things I love to do is work with engaged couples to take them down a path of, okay, what is money going to look like when we are married? Who's going to pay the bills? Um, how do we think about debt? How do we think about credit cards? Um, how many children do we want? When will we have children? Will one of us stop working? And how are we going to fortify our finances? There's so many things that we can work on with engaged couples to really set them up to succeed in their marriage because finances are one of the top causes of divorce. And if we can do um, some preemptive work to get them ready for finances, I think we can cut down the chances of divorce later on.
I can absolutely see that. Just looking back on my life, I know that early on, my wife had a lot of debt and was actually spending a lot of things. It was interesting. A strategy her parents had is like, hey, invest in a car. Let's get this. Have something that focuses you, and just to sort of bring some different mindset. Not saying that's advice that I give others, but it's about thinking about how you're spending, thinking about what role money plays and to get on the same page. There's something profound about where you're pointing that a couple coming together can be on the same page about something that's so important.
It's crucial. It is absolutely crucial. I talk to young couples and couples who are already married, who are my clients, about the concept of rowing the boat in the same direction. If they are not on the same page, they're in this boat and she's rowing this way and he's rowing that way, and they're not going anywhere. And so it's crucial that they get on the same page. And for that reason, I will not coach one spouse alone.
Mm.
I require both spouses be in every single coaching session.
And you do also only couples, or do you work with other type of clients in financial coaching?
I work with singles as well. I actually like working with singles a lot because then you only have to deal with one person. It makes it a bit easier. But then, eh, you know, uh, again, I will work with couples or singles, either one, because they all need help.
Mm. So what comes up in my mind is like you're a little bit like marriage counsel, but for financial coaching, because certainly when you work with
Yes,
couples, because I
yes,
imagine that sometimes certain things come on the table that it makes a difficult discussion to talk about.
absolutely it does. One of the things I do with all of my couple clients, and actually my singles as well, I created a money history assessment that that asks them to tell me two things: questions answered about their family of origin and how they dealt with money, and then how the client personally deals with money. Because in almost every case, the way our family of origin used and thought about money impacts the way we use and think about money, whether we realize it or not. And so that's a very instructive tool.
But yeah, I love that. There's so much that we learn through role modeling, even to your point before, even the emotional reaction and the value of what it actually means to have or to not have money, what role money does or doesn't play. And we just sort of osmotically absorb that from the reactions. And
Right.
then you get two families that are different coming together, trying to create one. And kids will also see that. They'll see that different dynamic, and that can absolutely cause confusion. That's what we bring when we show up individually or collectively to those
Ab
conversations.
Absolutely. One of the things that comes up very often in those money history assessments is that the client saw their parents interacting in a way that it was very obvious that there was financial infidelity going on, and they brought the child into it.
What do you mean financial infidelity?
I mean, where one partner in a marriage spends money and doesn't tell the other one, hides their purchases. Oh, we can't tell dad we bought this. That's traumatic to a child to be in that triangle.
Party to a lie, absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Fascinating. And so in your transition from pharmacist coach, coaching around finances, there's this whole business component of running a coaching business. What have you had to learn, and how does the financial coaching serve you in how you run your coaching business?
Well, I run my business debt free. Um, I, I I had a bit of a background in running a business. My husband was a dentist, and so we opened two very successful dental practices. So he taught me a lot about running a business. I am part-time on purpose. I don't coach full-time. And so I use my business primarily just to give me A, something to do, B, to feel like I have a purpose in my encore career years, and then C, to serve other people, just to feel like I am serving other people. My husband and I are, as I said, 100% debt free. And so I don't have to do this to bring in money, which is very freeing, actually.
Mm.
Mm.
I don't have the pressure of how are we going to make the house payment?
Mm. So budgeting, I think, is really important then in the coaching business as well.
Yes, 100%. I have a budget and stick to it, just like I expect my clients to.
There's that concept that's subtle that you alluded to before, is to not spend money one doesn't have.
Mm.
That's right.
Simple
That's right.
premise, yet socially challenging when we look around us.
It's very challenging. And there are parts of our society that make it more challenging than other parts.
So
So,
how you mentioned about that is the biggest challenge that people have. I think this is also something great within society that debt is there. So what could society do to start for the future generation to look at that is not that important, or that is not the focus, but more debt free?
What could society do? Oh my goodness, what a question. Um, uh, oh, you know, you cannot even turn on the television without getting an ad for a credit card or 0% interest on a vehicle. Um, it is Debt is so ubiquitous. It's that's a hard question to answer. I mean,
I
because
know. I'm sorry
uh,
for the hard question.
be, because every time someone takes on debt and pays interest, they're stealing from their future. They're helping the banks build bigger buildings, but they're stealing from their future. And if we as a society could learn that and learn, Erwin, I have an answer now.
Okay.
Contentment. Society could help future generations learn to be content. Because when we're not content, we're chasing after the next big thing, or we're chasing after what our neighbor has that we think we need to have as well. I don't know about where you live, but here in America, it's called keeping up with the Joneses. Um, and we are a society that we don't understand contentment with what we have.
I love that answer.
Yes, it is really profound. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah. Both in the context of the energy, as you said it, like something happened as you said that word, like contentment. And in the context of our conversation, which is ostensibly coaching, I see coaching playing a really important role in contentment.
Yes.
What role do you see coaching playing in that, whether it's financial coaching or others? But for all the coaches listening that are like, yes, sir, when that is a big question, don't ambush her like that. How can I help?
Well, I'm going to answer that from my perspective as a financial coach, but I think this can be applied because I have a life coaching certification, and this is something that I use no matter what the client is doing because life and money are inextricably linked. One of the things that I talk to my clients about, there's two key concepts I talk to my clients about. The first is wants versus needs. We're very good at turning a want into a need these days, like that. And so if I can slow a client down enough to think, okay, is this a want or is it a need? Then they can begin to see where they are spending money on things that are not needs. The other question I talk to clients about is it's the concept of opportunity cost. If you spend money on this, you will not have it to spend on that. And so, what is more important to your financial goals and your future success, this or that? And I never tell my clients how they have to use their money, how they have to spend their money. It's not my money, it's theirs. My job is to help them think through what's going to bring you more peace and contentment.
And probably also, when you talk about opportunity, is this going to also generate money? So if you invest in
Mhm.
something so in that point, is that going to be something, it's money I'm going to put away right now? I could not do this, but on the long run or mid run, this is going to give me a return. For example, buying another apartment that is good that you can rent out, that is going to give you then.
Exactly. Exactly. And I like to talk to people about not setting their dreams aside, like buying another apartment, but let's pause those dreams to get you to a place of financial stability where you can purchase that apartment and it be a blessing and not a source of stress.
I've just seen a connection between your previous work that you've done and now, because as a pharmacist, you gave medicine to help people to cure. Now, as a financial coach, you give like financial pills to people so that they can cure their financial kind of environment and health.
Right. Right. Yes.
I love that. I want to highlight some of the things that I heard you say just a minute ago because I think it's worth repeating. The first thing you said, and this slipped in, but I think it's really important, is to slow down,
Mhm.
to take that breath. breathe. Financial coaching is the name of your company.
Right, right.
Taking a breath is really important. The slowing down, then to look and to choose the other things around the wants and the needs, which I think is really important. So much is driven, as you said, by wants that we've defined as needs. And to actually go, well, slow down, think about this, have a look. What is the cost of spending that? What is the cost of keeping the same phone for another year? What is the cost of driving the same car? Well, actually, let's look at that and start to see to make those informed decisions. And then the second one, along the same lines, is every time we say yes to something, we say no to something else. And again, to slow down and to make the cost and the return of the decisions visible so that people can actually make a more informed choice, uh,
Yes.
to be able to choose, which to me is the essence of coaching, building the awareness and making empowered choice. And one other thing struck me was stability.
Mhm.
That's not a phrase that I hear people talking a lot about when they talk about money. I hear growth, I hear investment, I hear return. It's like hockey stick construct. It's always more, it's always bigger, it's always better. It's the financial version of those Joneses. But stability, a foundation from which you have choice, that feels really important and very different.
It is important and it is very different. And I know this personally because in 2007, my husband and I took on a lot of debt. We were $1 million in debt. And I I was just stressed. I couldn't breathe. And I distinctly remember saying, never again. Never again will we be in this kind of debt. And so by 2018, it was gone. We had paid it all off. And since then, we've been 100% debt free. The grass in the front yard feels different when you walk on it, when you own it.
It does.
And that is stability. Knowing that the bank cannot take my car, the bank cannot take my home. I own it. By the grace of God, I own it.
And decisions and awareness that you made along the way to choose to do things differently, to take that 20% of knowledge and build that 80% of behaviors,
Mhm.
but also to come back to what you said before, to have the dream, because never again is a dream. And
It
to
is.
have that dream is that first step of identifying, creating, and then following the path to make it happen.
Right,
So
right.
you mentioned, so what I heard also is that people need to have the right information to be able to make the right decisions. On the other hand, I see there's a lot of disinformation that is
Yes.
going around, that people have them around. So you as a coach, how do you balance being a coach and being an expert and making sure that you just dare to help them to be more aware, oh, be more aware, more aware of um, what is the right information that I need, and what is that from your end that I say, listen, I'm not going to tell them what to do, but just be there as a coach. How do you manage this?
It is a very delicate balance. And, I don't always do it well, I'm sure. Because when people come to me, typically in a crisis situation, and so they are coming to me partly to gain knowledge, but also to for me to help them figure out how in the world they're going to get out of this. Um, and so I'm kind of a natural teacher at heart. I've done a lot of public speaking and that's my sweet spot. So I have to be very careful about not launching into the teacher mode. Now, some of what I do as a coach is teaching. I have some teaching that I do for my clients. But I have to remember to, at appropriate times, to really be curious and ask them the questions that will help them come up with the answers themselves. There's, and I can't always do that. You know, if they don't know how to budget, I can't throw the budget up to them and say, okay, what is the ideal for this budget? No, I can't do that. I have to do some teaching and
Mm.
instruct them and point out, okay, this is not ideal. We need to do this with your budget. So that's been one of my biggest challenges, to be honest with you, is how do I balance the coach and the teacher in me?
Mm.
It's a common challenge. It's one that through my coaching journey, I found as well. And there's something that one of my mentors and supervisors said. And she said, if as a coach, all you're doing is asking questions, you're not really coaching. And to me, what I heard from that is there's something about two humans coming together in service of a shared and aligned goal. And if that means that you've got expertise that's relevant to the client, I, and I've struggled with this, it feels unethical to hold it back.
Right.
And to bring it in when it's not necessary, of course, is the other side of that. But to weave that dynamic to bring in, and of course, often coaching will have a more structured beginning as we get on the same page with concepts and ideas, because people are coming to you for your expertise, and it's not all about our expertise as a coach.
Right.
Yeah, I love that. Hey, noticing time and speaking of expertise, firstly, thank you so much for the insight and engaging way which you've articulated some things that I've often known but haven't necessarily thought about. And I think it is really important that we as coaches do remember that finances are an important part of our clients' lives, and
Mm.
everything you're articulating is coaching, and it's very focused, and it's just so brilliant. So, firstly, thank you for that. Secondly, for those that want to connect with you, that reach out, that are intrigued to learn more, how can people connect with you?
My website, leahadams.org. I am on LinkedIn, and I'm also on Facebook.
Awesome.
Good. Well, thank you very much, Leah, for this inspiring chat about financing and coaching because it's really interesting. I think a lot of people can learn from it. So thank you very much and talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.